First off, I have to say this video is not me bashing Apex. I love Apex and I play it nearly every day. However, just like with anything in life, there's always room for constructive criticism. And in fact, Apex welcomes this. They want to see valid, respectful complaints, as this is how they look to improve their game season to season. Now, whether or not they want to implement some of these things is totally up to them, but these 3 things are not just my complaints. They are complaints from the entire community that I'm seeing from just about everyone and everywhere. So let's discuss the 3 most hated things in Apex Legends Season 13. Number 1. The matchmaking. Right now, it's at its peak with how difficult it feels. Every game that you'll play seems like you're going against Masters or Predator 3 stacks that just want to stomp pubs all day. And it doesn't really matter if you're squatted up with your friends or you're solo queuing with randoms. This is what I find to be the most frustrating part about the matchmaking. Look, I get it. If I'm a Masters player and I want to play pubs with 2 other higher elo players, then yes, of course, put me against other 3 stacks that are comparable to my squad skill. But that just isn't how it works. Often I will be duo queuing in trios with a friend who is nowhere near Master's level, and we'll get a random in a similar skill level, but we're forced to go up against 3 stacks of Masters or Predator level players. Or on the flip side, I'll just solo queue with randoms, and usually I'm the best player on the team, not always, but usually. I'll have 2 lower elo players as my teammates, which is fine, but not if we have to fight multiple 3 stacks of Masters players. This just ruins the entire experience for everyone involved, except for the players who get to steamroll the lobby because they have a super team compared to everyone else. Now, I know this to be true for just about everyone this season, as I see the complaints literally everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, even in my Discord server, everyone is talking about this aspect and wondering, why is this the case? Now, I'll try to shed some light onto this as I do have a decent understanding of how Apex matchmaking works, or tries to work, and I'm going to make it really simple. Apex matchmaking, for whatever reason, is fundamentally built off of fast queue times. They want to get people in a match as quick as possible, and they would rather just get you in a match than try to make it the most balanced of matches. So with Season 12 netting the most amount of Masters, Diamonds, and other higher elo players, it looks like everybody you die to is of that caliber. Now, the worst part with this is all of the new rank changes this season. All of those higher elo players, or the majority of them, have said, screw playing ranked, I just want to stomp pubs. So now we have an influx of higher elo players stomping pubs, and often they are queuing up together, creating an even bigger imbalance in the matchmaking. See, Apex doesn't seem to differentiate between players squatted up together and players solo queuing with randoms. This is the biggest reason for the matchmaking feeling impossible. Now, my solution would be if the average wait time for a public match is, let's say, 5 to 10 seconds, give or take. I think most of the community would be fine waiting 30 to 45 seconds or so to receive a more balanced match. Now, it's really unclear whether or not Apex would ever implement something like this, but it's not some novel idea. Players have been calling for this since, God, I don't know, forever. But as I've said, Apex wants fast queue times, and this is probably due to some study they've done around player retention or the amount of time players sit down and play for a session. Regardless, I think we'd all love to see some serious changes to the matchmaking in this upcoming Apex Legends season. If you guys are enjoying this video, all I ask is for you to smash the like button in return. It's free, helps the video out a ton, and as a little thank you, I'll throw in another clip of me skateboarding at the end of the video. Number 2, Storm Point. Despite this being the newest addition to the map rotation and it receiving a small update this season, it still feels like by and far this is the community's least favorite map. One thing that definitely didn't help with this was the 24/7 Storm Point playlist at the beginning of the season. Now, I could understand this idea if the map was severely changed, but yeah, that wasn't the case. I'll dive into that in a minute though. Now, first, I thought the frustration with this map was more exclusively around public matches. Due to the map being so large and it having so much PvE, a lot of the players had complained that the map is just too boring for pubs. Like, they may find one team or so, but then they're just searching for long periods of time to find the next one. And when you do, it often feels like, wait, why are we fighting here? It's just some random spot that you weren't expecting to really bump into a team. I guess to just put it simply, it has a very odd flow to the map, and rotations can be strange or sometimes treacherous. After reading a lot of your guys' comments though, it's clear there's a portion of players who despise this map for both pubs and ranked. Now, personally, I think this map is fine for ranked, and it's probably one of the better options, in fact, because usually a larger map for ranked is better than a smaller one compared to, say, Kings Canyon, especially now that placement is so critical and kill points are just less important. However, that's the opposite effect when you compare ranked to pubs, right? If people go into pubs, most of them are just looking to fight and they don't really care about the risk reward. In ranked, it's vastly different. However, I think they need to do a couple things to improve the map. One would be either tone down the PvE or straight up remove it during ranked. It doesn't feel like Apex Legends really when you're fighting a team but then have to worry about getting attacked by prowlers during that fight. Now, of course, is the prowler going to kill you? Probably not, but it's going to waste your ammo and your time by having to focus shooting a ton of prowlers as opposed to looking at the approaching enemies that are using that as a window of opportunity to advance on you. The second thing they should do is add more POIs that are more in the center of the map to make it have more predictability with rotations. Now, wait. I know a lot of you are going to say, no, then it will just turn into Fragment 2.0. And I just want to say that's not true. Because if you watch close enough, players will still hut drop on their own, regardless if it's the middle of the map or if it's a place on the edge like Mill. So many players just want to hop into a dumb amount of action, regardless of what map they're on or where the POI is. But currently, Stormpoint has a huge area in the center of the map that is largely unoccupied, except with a couple of shacks and several prowler dens. I think this needs to be addressed because the last complaint I've seen about this map is it took 2 seasons for Apex to update the map, and all they added was a dead lobster on the edge of it. Sure, this POI added a decent spot and some good loot, but it feels extremely underwhelming due to it being on the far edge of the map and the amount of time we had to wait for something to change with the original Stormpoint map. All I know is that it's season 13, and there's hundreds of thousands of players that play this game daily. Having the option to pick which map you'd like to play on seems optimal, especially for public matches. Even if it was something like a voting system like the old Call of Duty had. Because when I hop on for an hour or so to play the game, and I see that it's Stormpoint for a full hour and a half, my motivation to play the game becomes non-existent, unfortunately. And I know a lot of other players share this same sentiment. Number 3 on the list is the rank changes. Now, I recently covered a lot of these changes and how the community seems to be feeling about them in a previous video, but I understand some of you watching this may not have seen that. So let's discuss why people aren't enjoying ranked nearly as much as previous seasons. First, it's really important to note that the whole strategy has shifted this season. Apex really wants ranked to be about a stepping stone to Apex competitive, which to those who don't know, competitive Apex is heavily focused on winning the game. Sounds obvious, right? But when you have a whole lobby trying to do this at a high level, it usually results in less fighting and more camping for positional advantage, particularly throughout the first 3 quarters of the game. To people who want to sweat out in a competitive environment, this ranked season may seem optimal, but to the average player base, it doesn't seem to fit too well. Most players think it's boring to sit around all game and camp just to have one last hectic fight with multiple teams in a very small circle with several abilities going off. Some of you are going to say, well, that's the game, and if you don't like it, find another game. But to that I'd say there's a whole area of nuance and complexity here. For example, there's a huge difference between 10 teams going into the last ring and 5 teams. This could make the fight either feel like you had no chance whatsoever because you have multiple teams shooting you, or it could feel like you're entirely in control and you have the best positioning so you're on track to win the game. Some players don't want to spend 15 minutes every game just preparing for one last fight. Oh, and by the way, that one last fight is sort of contingent on if you're going to gain or lose RP. I think ranked this season really comes down to specific skill levels. See, the majority of the player base is currently in gold or below. This makes a lot of sense because early on in Apex, players don't really seem to understand how to have a seriously competitive game mode. And honestly, it's not their fault. If I were to switch over to Valorant, there's no way I'd make one of the highest ranks, and neither should I. But at the same time, there's obviously a difference in how the game is played in a lower elo when you compare it to a higher elo, and that needs to be considered in my eyes. There's going to be a lot of situations that they aren't accustomed to on top of a rank system that really isn't going to reward you for killing anyone, more so for staying alive till the end and then trying to get some kills along with that. This is vastly different than other modes or previous ranked seasons, as I've said. I also think there's an essence of this season where it feels like it's a lot of work, meaning it's going to take a long time to rank up. And some players just don't have that availability because they have lives, partners, kids, jobs, etc. Now this makes a ton of sense. One of my bigger issues is the lack of rewards. They upped the ante but didn't change the rewards. And even for someone like me who plays this game for a living, it's still a lot of time to put in, all for really a recycled dive trail that I've had before and a badge that really doesn't entice me a whole lot. Not to mention the trail will go away after one season because, well, they need to recycle it. All in all, ranked just feels not as popular. It seems that views are down on ranked videos and the players who stream ranked, and this is really not healthy for Apex as a whole. So they're going to need to find a happy medium where they don't completely kill their player base's interest to appease the professional players because, well, the pros were a huge reason why ranked was changed in the first place. They wanted ranked to be like competitive. But I feel like if they just had more consistent competitive practice, the need for ranked to turn into a diet competitive mode wouldn't have been necessary. What do I know though? I'm just a guy on YouTube. Now, I want to give an honorable mention. I'm also aware of a ton of issues that console players have had this season, from the DDoSing at the beginning of the season to now some input lag on Xbox, I believe. And there's no way to sugarcoat these issues. Those suck. I hope Respawn is quick to fix this for you guys. Let me know down in the comments if I missed something. And if you'd like to learn more about why ranked has seemed to fail, I suggest you check out this video here. Thanks for watching. Peace.